Thanks, Greg, for the question. It feels great being here in Toronto, Canada, North America, the Americas, coming from Europe. I feel humbled to be here, coming from old Europe, maybe old smallish Europe, and to be able to share with you some of our experiences when it comes to the questions of infrastructure. You know, if you take the train today between Zurich and Bern at 7 a.m. in the morning, you will not find a spot even on first class. Our trains are overloaded. Our roads as well in rush hour, and it's also the case in Berlin. It's the same story in Stockholm, in Oslo, all over Europe. There is no uncertainty by saying that we have huge infrastructure requirements in Europe. And let me share you the experience we have in the countries we operate. Let me start with an observation. We operate in countries north of Switzerland. So we operate in Switzerland, in Germany, in Austria, in Norway, in Scandinavia. These are countries which, from a financial point of view, where the public entities, from a financial point of view, are pretty good. So these are countries with long-term credit ratings, AA+, as the lowest. So these are countries which, from a financial point of view, would not necessarily have an issue in funding the infrastructure they need. Observation one. Observation two, and let me take three countries now. Let me take Norway. Norway, the Norwegian government has implemented a few years ago a long-term infrastructure investment program. It's called the National Transportation Plan. They determined not the amount of dollars or the euros to be invested, but the projects to be realized. Which are the projects we want to construct in the next decade? Interesting, as an observer, not being Norwegian, is to follow the political discussion, is that at each election, the question is not whether the program should be adjusted or changed or stopped. The question that in the public arises is how can we increase the program? How can we add on more projects to the program? What we are seeing now as a company participating in this program and building infrastructure up in the very north of Norway, all the way down until Oslo, is that we have a sequence of events, of projects identified, projects put out for bid, and projects awarded at a rhythm which I've not seen in any other context. The limiting factor here are the resources on the government side to be able to cope with the management of all of those projects, and on our side also the ability to have sufficient, sophisticated, strong project managers to run those infrastructure undertakings. That's Norway, and you may say, well, that's easy. The Norwegians have had oil. It's a relatively small country. They have the means. Let me take Germany. Germany, the largest infrastructure market in Europe, $50 billion plus a year. Clearly underinvested over the last decade, at least a decade. The Germans are waking up slowly now that they have been funding the investments in Southern Europe, in Spain or in Greece or in Italy, and they're now realizing that they have clearly underinvested in their own country. They're having difficulties in coping how to structure large infrastructure undertakings. Let me give you the example of Stuttgart 21, which is a new rail station, and with the links to the north-south link, rail link, very important infrastructure development, the most important that is being done by the Deutsche Bundesbahn. The challenge is how you cope with public, private, environmental interests. How do you balance all of those interests without blocking the project? That project has been blocked, continues to be substantially blocked. The balance of those forces has not been found. Those of you who travel to Berlin these days, you will be amazed in the kind of airport you will be landing. You know, the new airport is still not open. Handling complexity, not only from a technical point of view, but complexity also from a social, environmental, and political point of view. The challenge where Germany has an issue in dealing with. And let me take the third market, my home market, Switzerland. Infrastructure for us in Switzerland is a raison d'être. We have nothing else. We don't have energy, we don't have any other resources. So at least, and this is in the DNA, somehow in the DNA of the country to have good infrastructure. We just finished the largest tunnel on Earth, which is a new tunnel, the Gotthard Tunnel, the new tunnel through the Alps. At $25 billion and euros are about the same these days. Swiss francs as well. This undertaking, 25 billion, finished ahead of time, under budget. The political consensus, in a very technically very difficult project was found. The balancing of interest between the different constituencies was found a total success as a project. Let me kind of conclude what I'm trying to say. We have markets. Markets have infrastructure demands. How to deal with those demands, a difficult exercise. How to balance those different interests, the challenge to manage. If we get that to manage, I don't think that financing is going to be the limiting factor. It's going to be our ability to deal with the complexity. We are currently overflooded with capital. I mean, if we think about interest rate levels we have had now for years, so we are seeing an overflooding of capital, very low interest rates, but we're still having difficulties in turning the machine on. I think the answer is that we don't have enough projects. I think the complexity, the way we are dealing with projects, the way we are packaging projects, this is where we need to find, we have not found the formula yet. I mean, there is this company here that found the formula of simplicity, and this is why they are flooded the market with telephones. I believe our industry needs to go through a major reshuffling, all players in the industry, major reshuffling in simplifying processes. If you think about everybody involved in large infrastructure projects, I mean, the time, from the moment you have an idea on a project, all the way through the planning processes, the challenges in the planning processes, the planning engineers, the architects, and so on, until one day you start procuring, maybe a decade later. In that time, technology has changed, has totally changed, but then you still procure it using technology of 10 years ago. We need to change this. We need to totally change this. I think we need to define processes. We need to work on a parallel basis. We need to work instead of sequential basis. And I think here our industry, I've said it in another panel recently, we are probably the most inefficient industry on Earth, and this is where the biggest business opportunity lies, because by becoming more efficient, we're going to become also a much more attractive. So, in a nutshell, we need to simplify the way we do projects to make capital more attractive. Technology has brought us so close. Everybody has an opinion on everything. Which is fascinating, which is, as the CEO of a company, I'm getting direct input from a member of a community where we might be doing and the communication is very direct, and the ideas are created very directly. It's an absolute conditio sine qua non that in order to successfully develop your projects, you have to have a balance, a total direct communication, and involve the communities. Otherwise, you're not going to get your project done. Yes. It's this balancing of it, which is a conditio of operation, a license to operate.